Hi everyone, Angus Campbell here. Evening of Friday the 17th of April 2020. Deliveries. So we've got choke cables, we've got petrol pipe unions for the bottom of the taps that we've installed in the tank. We've got ferrules, cable ferrules for the throttle. So we've got those items to attend to. As some of you did point out and did hear when we were lubing the bike up in the previous video, there was a bit of clanking going on, and that was the split link catching the inside of the chain guard. So we've got that to take off and just do shall we say a bit of customization. It's because of this bracket here and it needs bending over, but you can't do that properly unless you take it off. So I've taken the bolt out of this end, as you can see, and I've just got to take this front one off. There we go. It might help if you can see it. And then we'll just get that bent very slightly, just to pull the chain guard that way a bit, coming out a bit, and that will do that. And then what else have we got to do? That's probably about it for the last few jobs to finish completing the bike. So not too much really. But the bigger problem is that now it's lubed up, it is leaking quite a bit of oil, and the bad news is that that oil isn't coming from the oil pipe union. It's actually seems to be weeping from the joint between the inner timing case and the crankcase on the right hand side. So I think what we're going to have to do to get this done properly is take that inner case off, which means that it's pretty straightforward to do, but it does mean we'll have to take the points out, we'll have to take the auto advance out. But as long as I mark the position of those up with felt tip pen or something like that, then it should be fairly straightforward to time the engine back up once we put that together. But there's something wrong somewhere with the mating surfaces, because if you wipe the surface down, it starts weeping out immediately, so it's very easy to pinpoint where it's coming from, and it is on that mating surface just below what would be the oil pump. So whether or not I've managed to accidentally trap something in there, I don't know. I didn't notice anything untoward when we built this up, but there's obviously something going on, and maybe it's just a simple case of a low spot for some reason or other. And if that's the case, then the only solution might be to try and pack in another gasket, which we can do. I'd rather not. But at this stage it's going to be difficult to try and resurface the mating surfaces really, and we've not got much of a tolerance to play with either. Anyhow, we'll get it fixed. Just a simple maintenance job really. The hardest bit is getting the footrest out of the way. Anyway, we've got that to do. Also, I think I did mention in the last video that I found in stock an original grey cable, 5 foot 6 inches long, which is spot on, and that's just lying there at the moment. It's not connected at the other end, obviously, just yet, because we've got to route that properly, so that's a job to do as well. So those are the final jobs before we're... Oh, and obviously the petrol pipes and the unions on the carbs, but they're the final jobs. I think we've got everything to do that. So the plan is that this Friday evening and tomorrow Saturday, we'll finish off those jobs, and at the moment we're aiming for a first start on Sunday, which will be a separate video. So what we'll do first is try and start with the easy one really. Because we've got the ferrules for the throttle cable and because we've got the lower end of the choke cables now, we'll get the carbs operation sorted. So we'll just lift the tank as it's only sat on there, and we'll get the cables finished, and I'll bring you back once I've done that. Right, first one just about there. For those of you that haven't seen Amel Mark 1 concentrics, then you've got one cable that goes down the centre of the main spring into the bottom of the slide there, and then you've got the choke cable at the back that goes through a guide and its spring into the choke slide. It's just peeping out the end there, as you can see, which actually resides within the choke slide resides within the throttle slide. So we'll get that back in. Like that. Sometimes with these carbs being at a slight angle, you've got to be a bit careful with the needle popping, but that's gone on okay. Button it up like that, and then once we've done that, we can pop the top of the choke cable into its 1-inch box, which is quite easy because you can just raise the choke slide to give you the necessary spacing here and play to get that cable in. Right, and we'll do that, complete that, and then we'll do the same for the other side, and then hopefully that'll be it for the carbs. Right, that's that job done. Took a bit of time on that to ensure we got right cable routing, adjustment, etc. So it looks pretty neat and tidy, and the junction box for the 1-2 choke cable sits nicely under there, underneath that wrap, so it's nice and snug. Cables appear to be hanging down quite a bit, but I always remember them being like that in the old days anyway. So I'm sure they're the right cables. I could pull them through a little bit more at the back, I suppose. But that's fine for me anyway. And yeah, all pretty neat and tidy. So all pretty pleased with that. Throttle works nicely. I've adjusted the stop and also the friction screw. That's all right. So it doesn't twang back, but it's not too loose either. It's well greased up inside. Choke lever is firm because it has to stay in that position normally, obviously when it's running, but when bikes are standing I always put the choke on so we're not stretching the cable. Maybe we could do a twisting round a little bit of that, but it's tight anyway. That's good. Right, that's that one done. Next, getting pretty late in the evening now because, as I say, that took a bit longer than anticipated. But we can now put the tank back on. Just check everything's snug underneath it, and then we'll be ready to sort the petrol pipes out. I've got all the gear to make those up. The only thing I'm not sure of is if I've got double 180-degree banjos for each of the carbs, because they've come with single banjos, and as we're running a normal and a reserve tap, we need both carbs to be fed by both taps. So we need a 180 banjo here so we can actually join the carbs in between one another. And actually I've just remembered something as well. There's the inlet balancer tube that fits, you can just see, there we go, there's one of those nubs there, and there's one on the other side. We've got to fit the tube across that. It ain't going to run very well without that. Have I just remembered that? Anyway, when we carry on with the jobs tomorrow, the final jobs tomorrow, then obviously before we start it up, we'll be doing a check over the whole machine anyway. But yeah, must make a mental note of that one. It's going to get quite a bit of air in it without that. Right. Okay, take a break now, but I'll be back in the morning with the next clip in the video. Right, here we go then, petrol pipes. Right, the first dilemma is that with each of the two new carbs, there's only a single hole banjo rather than a two hole, because we need to link the two carbs together, because the reserve taps on the, which side is it on one side anyway, and normal running taps on the other, and we want to feed both carbs from both taps, so therefore we need a link tube, and obviously we're not going to get that with these. So I've got a couple on order, but they're going to take a few days to come. However, in my stock of spares stash for Furies and stuff, the carbs that I'm going to eventually put on the Fury SS here, waiting for its cylinder head to come back from engineers at some point, the carbs are here, and these are new old stock original Mark 1 carbs, and as you can see, they've got the extensions on them that go into the air filter on the Fury. There you can see the two holes of the air filter at the back, rubber lined, and they just slot in there. So they're absolutely the correct carbs, and in fact these carbs as well automatically came as a pair complete with full choke cable, which is a bonus. But they also came with original complete petrol pipes with top unions, and also, luckily for us, with a couple of 150-degree twin outlet input banjos. So I'm gonna steal these, and that will get us off the ground then for the Lightning. But the next thing then is petrol pipe. Now, as you can see from both these original pipes with the sort of crimped metal ends, which I'm going to use because I've got all the kit to do that, as you can see, got the black metal ends and the crimper, which is good. As I was saying, these are the original pipes, and also I've got those on the Show Fury, which is original and unrestored, and there we are. Difficult to see, can't focus, but that was a clear pipe, but obviously it's yellowed and aged and stuff. And to be honest, I'm not a fan of these clear pipes, and you see some instances, probably in the older Triumphs, where they use black pipe, and I quite like the black pipe, and I've got some. Now I've got two different ODs, IDs as well. So I've got the real nice heavy duty stuff, but obviously then you've got to think about the size of the caps that you're going to crimp on, and I've only got 4 of the large ones. The rest of the smaller ones that either go on the clear pipe, or I do have some smaller diameter black pipe. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to use the black bigger OD pipe to go from the petrol tap unions down to the carb, and then I'll use the thinner OD pipe for the link between the carbs, and that means then I've got the all the correct ends. I've got enough in stock to do that. So I think that's what I'm going to do, and I just think that black pipes as well are just going to be in keeping with, you know, the other black rubber on the carbs there, the black barrels, and also the original style of oil pipes are black as well, and they've got to be, there they are at the back there, but they've got to be strapped up yet. But I just think it'll just keep the same style, so I'm going to do that. So for those that don't like it, apologies, but that's what I'm going to do. and I think they look good. If you look at some pictures of the older Triumphs that had them, probably 50s and early 60s, they look really good, I think. And the black also sets off either the nickel or the galv on the crimped end caps too, so I quite like that. The other consideration is the two unions came for the petrol taps, and then I found one in stock. But these, firstly, are slightly too long, and two, the angle isn't quite acute enough. So what do you call that? An obtuse angle, don't you? Probably. It needs to be a little more acute on that side to bend outwards a bit more, because these foul the. Let me show you. These will actually, when they're tightened up on the tap there, they're too long, and they do actually foul the carb inlet rubbers from the air filter. So we'll just shorten them a bit and just bend them out very slightly. So that'll be the first job, and then we'll make up the pipes on these two 150-degree twin banjos. I'll get on with that now. I'll bring you back once I've put that lot together, because it's easy enough to fabricate off the bike as long as you've got the right dimensions between the banjo centres between the carbs. Just a quick addendum to that job. So I've got the original double outlet banjos off the original pipe successfully without damaging the pipe. But I just wanted to show you, those are the original ones. These are what you get with the carbs now, and the outlets are different. I don't like them at all. These are much better. And if you try and use those on original pipe diameters, etc., then I'm trying to do this one-handed. Hang on a sec. It just slides in and out. So you know, more. Well, that's not even patent stuff now, is it? Supposedly. These are still Amel, but probably owned by somebody else. And the other thing I just thought I'd show you here, you know, I like ranting on about patent parts. Luckily, I bought spare ferrules for the throttle cables, the top of the throttle cables that go into the twist grip. There you go. Look at the state of that. And actually, even that centre hole isn't actually punched all the way through. It's got a tab there, so that'd never bloody work without a lot of messing about. Look at it. God's sakes. Anyway, I had a pair of reasonable ones, so they're in it and they work. Right, onwards then with this job. Let's get these petrol pipes and these banjos and the unions all together. Okay, there we are, petrol pipes done, just about. Reason being that the two outer pipes, this side and the other side, are fine with the crimps on. That's good, but the adjoining pipe, there we go, between the carbs that you can see there, where I was intending to use a slightly smaller outer OD pipe that had some crimps for, wasn't going to work because the hole in the crimps wasn't big enough to go over the stubs on the banjos. So I've gone for the same OD pipe as this, just haven't put any crimps on yet, but it is nice and snug, so I'm sure it isn't going to leak anyway, but we can always put that on at a later date. And then what I did with the smaller OD pipe that I cut for that length, it didn't go to waste, because I then used it as the balance pipe between the inlets, and you can't see it very well, but it's just there, looped there between the nubs on the inlet ports. So that's that done. Right, next, chain guard. So I've got the chain guard off. As I said, when we were oiling up, it was clanking a bit, and if we look at it, we can see the chain's been catching here, and the reason why it was clanking, it was just the split link that caught, which obviously is wider than the rest of the chain. And if you look at the guard in general, you can see how, you can't see too well, but it actually bends inward slightly down its length. So we've just got to open that out slightly and just adjust that back bracket there, and then we'll refit that. So we'll get on with that next. Right, chain guard done. Just very slightly bent this bracket here, so the chain guard comes this way a little tiny bit, and that's much better. I think I've done it enough. Of course, you can't do it too much because otherwise it'll catch on the other side. So I think it's just about central now, but it's all tightened up. And also what I've done as well is I noticed that with respect to the bolt that anchors both the chain guard on obviously the bottom shock here, it was getting a little bit too close at the back end to the brake plate. So I've just put another washer on here just to pull it out a bit, and that's much better, I think. Right, let's go and have a look and see if I can show you this oil leak, because other than that and tightening down the tank, we're done. Check round all nuts and bolts and stuff, but let's just have a quick look at that oil leak. Right, so here we are then under the timing case, and we're looking at, you can see the red gasket there, which is the mating surface between the inner cover and the right hand crankcase half. And on that flat sort of inverted triangle face there, then originally oil, you could see oil coming out of the, what appeared to be coming out of the gasket at that point, green drops of it running down that face. And I've just wiped it down and there wasn't much there. It's still a little, as you see, a bit of surface oil down there, but there's nothing, you know, running out as it was. That's better. Let's get this torch toned down a bit. So I'm going to leave it to stand, and we'll see if we get any drips on the garage floor. Now, of course, a lot of you will say, "Well, it's all run out. The tank's drained." Well, I'm pretty sure it's not, but worth a check. Let's go and have a look. Right, well, the oil is off the dipstick, which I knew that anyway because I checked it after we did all the turning over with the rollers to get the oil around the engine. So obviously you'd expect it to be circulated around the motor and oil would drop. So it is off the dipstick and you can't see it, but I have just inserted, you know, a longer length of wire, and there's definitely quite an awful lot of oil in the tank still. So there's still effectively pressure going down the feed line to the pump. So I don't understand why all of a sudden it would stop, unless the gasket's swollen, or I don't know. Possibly a smidgen started just on the top right of that sort of inverted pyramid face there, just on the top right there. Yeah, a little bit there was, just on my finger end, but nothing like as bad as it was. I'm tempted to leave it like that, to be honest. and actually go back to it once we've run the motor up for the first time. Because what I normally do is once the motor's been hot, then certainly the recommendation is to go back and put another quarter of turn on the cylinder head nuts, but I also do check round all the nuts and screws etc. as well, and just see if we can give them another bit of a tweak. And the expansion might just do it when it gets hot. Alternatively, of course, it might get worse. So let's see anyway. I'll keep my eye on it. Today is it is the following day from when I started this. Today is Saturday the 18th, and we're not intending to start it until tomorrow, because what we'll do now is do a full check around the whole bike. Might even put a coat of polish over it all, and then I've got to go out and just see if I can find somewhere to fill the jerry can with petrol too. So anyway, let's just put this back together. Like so. That little clonks, as you can hear, and then we'll line it up, and there we are, just about ready to go. So I'm going to do a check round now, check nuts and bolts from the back to the front, and then we'll grab some fuel. Right, done check round, tightened up a few bits and pieces. Speedo cable now on, and also tidied up the front down tube wiring. That's better. There is a bit of a problem with the tacho cable. Can't quite see it from there, but the tacho cable is awfully close to the exhaust pipe. It's not touching, but it's close, and the bottom of that tacho cable doesn't have the sort of metal spiral shielding that a lot of them used to have, that everybody used to put at the top rather than the bottom. So we'll have to have a bit of a think about that. But anyway, looking good, and I'm just attending to what I think is the final job now for prep, and that is to finally do up the tank central mounting, and then we'll put the aluminium cover back on, and then I think we're there. Just one other final thing to mention with the prep. Some of you going back may remember when I was attending to the primary drive, we had a problem with the original 4-screw fixing rotor cover, in that it was in a bit of a state, but it was the original one, cast one, rather than machined from CNC, and we thought we'd try and do a Lumiweld repair. Well, what turned out when I heated it up was there was all sorts going on. There was some form of filler that had been used on the back side of it here, and that caught fire, and then I obviously overheated it and it cracked. So it ended up being a bit of a mess, and following this little bit of a clip, I might show you another couple of bits of clip at the time. Right, another one of the I suppose more minor jobs in the scheme of things is attending to this rotor inspection cover on the left hand side of the primary case. In an earlier video, when I was probably stripping the motor actually, then we had a quick look at this, because it's led a very hard life. What on earth they've been doing to this, I have no idea, but they are quite difficult to get hold of. The certainly the original ones you can't get, and the ones that you can get now are machined from one piece on CNC, which I don't particularly like. So I'm going to stick with this one as its original one, and we're just going to try and resurrect this a bit. So firstly, on the hole on this side, which is this one, you can see we need to build this up, which I'm going to try with Lumi-Weld. Also, that one needs a bit of repair as well. I don't know what the hell this stuff is that they've used in the past to try and hold this thing together, and why it's all over there I've no idea, because all they've done is succeed in just blocking up that hole there, and I might try and drill that just to see if there's some I don't know, chemical metal or something like that that they may have used. But first of all, we'll try and attend to this hole, and where is it? That one. And so we'll clean this up and we'll give it a blast with Lumi-Weld. Well, as you can see from the smoke coming off, whoopsie daisy. But it was in an awful mess. There were a bit missing off the side here. When I took it apart, there was that amount of sealer behind it. Almost cast another one. So they were obviously having problems with it leaking oil. It was in a right state. Anyway, I didn't really want to buy a CNC machined one, which are pretty readily available, because I don't like them. They don't look right. So, but anyway, luckily I found another primary cover, actually chromed as well, with a good rotor cover, and all I had to do was to paint it up and put it on. And actually, it is chromed, that, but you wouldn't tell, so that's okay. And that really smartens it up, and it's in good condition too, and it's an original cast one with factory number on the back, etc. So I'm happy. So I've now got a spare cover, primary cover. I might sell it, but actually I could do with the inspection caps as well. And it has got one original screw for the oil level, but it hasn't got the original one for the drain. But other than that, it's not that big. But the chrome is worn through to well, you can see it's not had that good a life. Not quite as bad as the original cover that we've resurrected on the bike, and looks pretty good now. But I have left some of the scars, but we'll probably have a separate video just so I can go through, you know, what's original, what's not original, what I've left, just history-wise of the bike, and etc. But anyway, we're on track to fire it up tomorrow. So just looking around, make sure everything's ready to go. Right, we'll leave it there then. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. Thanks for your interest, comments and subscriptions. And we're just about there. And see you again soon, hopefully, for what will be probably a first start in, I reckon, 40 years, 1980. Right, see you again soon. Cheers, bye-bye.